Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Zomboland Music instead of gaming. Once again, I did a kind of a little weekend study that I like to do. I had come up with something on my guitar, and I was like, oh, I need to write this down in MuseScore so I can remember how to do it. Because I did write myself some notes, which you can't see because it's dark as all hell can get out in here. I did write some notes down, but when I write tablature out, I never remember what the rhythm was. So I was like, let's go into MuseScore and let's come up with something. So if I pop over to MuseScore real fast, this is kind of the end piece, right? It's just what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 4, 6, yeah, eight measures. That's my typical thing. It's either 8 or 16. So it ended up being, on paper, there was no measure. It was just one big giant glop of goop. So I figured I wanted to come up with something out of it, right? So what I ended up doing, and I have a little bit of a process here, but first, what I'm going to show you is I did record my guitar with FL Studios. I can play my guitar over the microphone. It's just a metric pain in the ass to have to do it right now. I have to lower my microphone down, change the gain settings, do a bunch of stuff in FL Studios, record it, and then situate everything back again in order for me to speak to you. Hopefully, Monday, tomorrow, I'm going to be ordering my Shure microphone that I can plug into my Focusrite, and then I can actually plug my guitar in as well. Because, you know, thanks to Microsoft, I can only have one audio input, so I can't have a Blue Yeti USB microphone and the Focusrite for my guitar right now. It's a major pain in the ass. So, crappy quality recording, but this is kind of a little thing that I came up with on my guitar. I am in drop C tuning on my guitar, so everything is down a whole step. So I'm starting off on the 9th fret on the higher C string, which would be originally the D string. So here we go. So really basic, right? Just a basic melody. It's just something that popped into my head, and I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. You know, obviously the timing's off. It needs a whole lot more, whatever. So first things first, I always figure out what scale am I in. So now the reason I'm picking B Mixolydian here is probably not the right choice for really trying to think of the scale. But I think if I go to add more to this, I want it to be more of a hopeful song. So hence, based on the notes that were there, I decided to keep it in B Mixolydian, even though what I'm about to show you here later doesn't have a B chord anywhere in it. So I'm never approaching the root note of the home note. But I like it. It's going to be, if I go into, you know, the B section or something else, I'll be able to emphasize that root note if I progress more. So it will go to B Mixolydian. Currently, I would call it Lydian. I guess it'd be Lydian is really what it would be, but enough of that. So anyway, so B Mixolydian sounds like this. So B Mixolydian is the fourth, fourth of the E major scale. And so the difference here, so here's E major. And the big difference here is between the 6th and the 7th notes, and then the 7th to the, you know, back to an octave up. And if we hear it from here, if we go back over the B Mixolydian, see, it's got that half step difference right there. So it's really the only difference in the scale buildup. So what I ended up doing with this is I tried to break it up rhythmically in order to have little motifs here that are kind of repetitive. So we can kind of see just looking at the notes, the way the notes look. This first little measure here looks almost identical to the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th measures, and they basically are. The only difference really is that it's a different chord. Essentially, if I was to add other notes, stack other notes on top of it. So the progression is kind of going A, which is the flat 7th of the B Mixolydian scale, G sharp, which is the minor 6th, E, which is the 4th, and then D sharp, which is the 3rd. So that kind of progresses like this. So, do 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 do, not bad. So this is kind of where I need to figure out. I need to have these chords in there somewhere. I need to have a B somewhere. Either, you know, the progression needs to resolve on the B, the root note, or resolve on the fourth of the scale, the E. And obviously it doesn't here. It resolves on a D sharp, which is kind of awkward. But so I'm gonna eventually use these two chords somewhere. You know, those two chords somewhere. I'm gonna use them in there. But so what I ended up doing was I took my original riff and put it on violin, so it's the exact same notes on the violin that I would play on the guitar, and this is what this sounds like. So it's a little bit rhythmically different than what I played in that recording earlier, but still sounds pretty nice. Oop. Let's go back to that again. You know, I like the adding the staccato. Obviously, I'm doing some palm mutes on my guitar, so it makes things a little bit different. But that's essentially what I did. I took the violin and basically just made it exactly what I'm playing on my guitar. You know, give or take a little bit of the rhythm there. Also, you know, to spread it out to a nice even 8 measures. And so then the next step would be I need to add some bass. I need to add something to give it a little bit more texture, right? Obviously, because everything, I want harmony to go along with my melody. So what I ended up doing is taking the left hand of the piano and then a viola, and I came up with this progression. And all I'm doing is the first note of every 2 measures is what I'm calling my chords for that section, right? So that's that A, G sharp, E, D sharp. So all I'm doing is playing a major or minor 7th, depending on what scale, what portion of the scale we're in. But I'm just playing a 7th chord, arpeggiated out. So in the case of here, what is that? Me and bass clef are terrible. What is that? A, G, E, D, C, B, A, B. It's fuck. That's not B. It's an A. What am I doing? That's an A. I already know it's an A chord because that's the first chord over here. I am a dum-dum when it comes to bass clef. So basically A, C, E, and then to a G, right? So we're just playing a 7th chord, and it's just progressing like so. So it also adds a little bit of a rhythmic element there that's different from the actual, you know, melody. You know, the melody has that kind of little groove to it where it's do 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 do, whereas this one's more straightforward. So it kind of gives it almost like 2 different polyrhythms, you know, even though there's not a difference in rhythm, it's still playing in 4/4 time. It gives it a little bit of a rhythm difference there, which is nice. The cello, just to add some actual bass. The cello is just playing that root note of the chord that happens to be for those 2 measures, basically just to give a nice little texture. So in piano, it sounds like this, just playing half notes, right? So it seems pretty dead there in piano, but in cello, because it's, you know, vibrating for that, you know, sustaining for that half note, sounds really good. And then in order to get a turnaround, because I'm basically playing the 8 measures back over again, to get the turnaround, all I'm doing is just playing an arpeggiated chord. That last chord, the D sharp, just playing a D sharp, you know, 7th chord back up. So that's like this. So just to get that little bit of interest, to also, you know, kind of sort of chromatically get us back to the, you know, the chord that we originally started with. And then the right hand on the piano, because originally I had taken the guitar and put it on right hand for the piano, but then when I decided to put it on violin, I was like, I don't want to double up both the piano and the violin, so let's just go ahead and play a real quickly arpeggiated out chord. So basically all I'm doing with the piano for the first 6 measures is every 2 measures, I'm just playing a 7th chord arpeggiated out. So that's like this. So just give that like bright kind of sound, right? But then to get to the turnaround, what I've done here is the D chord, the D sharp chord. If I was to stack the, you know, a perfect 7th chord right here, it just sounds so muddy and bleh. So what I did is I separated it out a little bit, and it ends up kind of being an F sus2 chord. So the 1st, the 2nd, and the 5th of an F chord. So F, G, and F, G, and C. But what I ended up doing because the chord is supposed to be a D sharp, I just put that F sus2 chord with a D sharp over it, which is why I've titled it here D sharp F sus2. Otherwise, it would be a really weird name D sharp chord. So that's my choice of chord name there. And then all I did to do the turnaround is I kind of did the opposite of what I did with the cello, is instead of walking up with the cello, I walked down with the right hand of the piano to get to basically, what is that, an F? No, an A. It's an A. So kind of gives us that A leading right back into what's gonna be the A on the next next repeat of everything. So we start off on an E and work our way down to an A backwards. So that would be this. So this is actually going to be coupled with the violin here. So kind of give you a little, it's a nice, really cool, vibe there. It kind of picks up a little bit to turn around. So the flute, obviously I was like, okay, I could have been done there. Violin, the viola, and the bass, left hand on the piano playing bass, and then the cello playing super bass. I could have just left it there, but I was like, I needed more dynamic. I needed more feel to this. So I decided to take a flute and a clarinet. And so the flute, what I did was when I copied and pasted into the flute, because I just basically wanted it to play the exact same thing as what the violin is. I just wanted it to be in a different diatonic portion of the scale. So I transposed it up to make it more clarity with the flute, so you can actually hear it over the violin. But then what I did was I transposed it diatonically by the third. So instead of being in the case of the first portion there in the A range, we're up in F sharp. And so then the clarinet, ironically, the clarinet, when I copied and pasted the violin to the clarinet, it's a B flat clarinet. When I went to transpose it, I was like, I've got a third. Let's transpose by a sixth, because sixths always sound awesome. I'm not so bright sometimes. Ironically, it ends up being an F sharp. So the notes are the exact same thing as the flute, just down an octave. And then also, ironically, even though I'm using a different instrument and I transposed up, I actually ended up being transposed down below what the violin range is. So it kind of ends up being weird. I was really hoping for a full triad between the clarinet, the flute, and the violin. Like in the case of an A, the violin would be playing an A, the clarinet would be playing a C, or in this case a C sharp, and then the flute would be playing an E. But it just did not sound right. Having either the flute or the clarinet is the fifth of the scale, it just did not sound right. So I kind of just left it. I was like, you know what? We basically got an octave, two instruments playing an octave, and then the violin playing the original melody. And it ends up sounding okay. So it's kind of a weird chord. It's like a sixth chord, but minus the third and the fifth, because you basically have two F sharps and then a D sharp. So it's kind of weird. But that's what this. This is kind of the flute with the violin, the clarinet with the violin, and then all three combined. So just having that extra third there makes it sound really good. So obviously all this is in piano, right? So, but I'm showing you my thought process of how I go through creating some of these things. It's not just one of those like quick, simple things sometimes. Sometimes you have to kind of think about it. Actually, my explanation of this is actually longer than it took me to come up with this. But so those are all of the pieces of the puzzle that then led me to have this. So you can see up here, we got the flute on the top, which is playing the third of the scale diatonically. The clarinet is playing diatonically, technically the sixth, but it's essentially the third. And then the piano is playing just that chord rhythm. They're arpeggiated chords with a nice little steady rhythm for the bass. The violin is playing my original guitar melody. The viola is basically matching the left hand of the piano. And then the cello is playing just those root notes, the root notes of the chord that happens to be in that section. So this is what that sounds like. for like just a little quick, like 15-minute exercise of just sitting down with something that I just happened to play on my guitar during the day, and then like, let's make something of it, right? It's 8 measures. It's my typical little routine of practicing, coming up with something. Obviously there's a lot of work that needs to be done to it, especially sound quality wise. Like I have the dynamics are all completely off. And I could definitely use some vibrato here and there. Plus it's MIDI. But it's interesting. It gives me a good idea of something to add to, later on. It kind of has an anime-ish kind of feel to it, in my opinion. Like some sort of slice of life starting intro thing. So I like it. So anyway, just wanted to kind of share something that I've done this weekend. Another one of my little study things. I promised that I would start doing these. I'm ordering my microphone on Monday. I got a boost box that's coming with it, and then the XLR cables, and it's I can't remember. It's a Shure 70, I think is what it is. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it will actually be plugged into the Scarlett Focusrite. And then I'll be able to actually plug my guitar directly in, or guitar to amplifier to the Focusrite, whatever. I'll be able to actually start recording guitar or playing guitar via streams or in my other YouTube videos. I'm pretty excited about it. So anyway, for the time being, this is what you get. Anyway, hope you have a good day. See you later. Bye.